everyone, I am Charlie Matthews, and welcome back to another episode of Charlie Reviews, where I, obviously, review games. And do you know what month it is? It's Spooky Month! Yeah! And if you watched my last episode, you will remember that in the outro for that video, I said that for this year's Halloween special, I would be reviewing one of my favourite horror games of all time, Bendy and the Ink Machine. Oh, how I remember fondly of when the first chapter came out, and then the second, and then the third, and then the... Okay, I'm getting off track. Let's review Bendy and the Ink Machine. Story. Bendy and the Ink Machine starts with a letter from Joey Drew, the founder of a cartoon company named Joey Drew Studios, a bit egotistical if you ask me, that made these cartoons all associated with a little devil named Bendy. The letter Joey wrote was for his old pal Henry to come back to the old studio they used to work at. So, Henry turns up to the old studio to find what Joey wanted him to see. So, after exploring a bit, Henry finds himself in the ink machine room, but it looks like some power cells are missing. Henry finds them and turns on the ink machine. Well, kinda, because it isn't actually using any ink yet. So, seems like Henry has to do some more exploring if he wants to turn it on. After collecting some weird artifacts for some pedestals and turning on the ink flow, Henry finally turns the power on, fully powering the ink machine. Soon enough though, Henry realizes that it was a big mistake when a weird deformed version of Bendy pops up and tries to grab him. The studio starts breaking down and Henry starts to escape until he falls through the floorboards and into a deeper part of the studio. He explores a bit more and then finds himself an axe that he breaks down things with. After more exploring, he finds himself in a really creepy pentagram room until he has repressed memories and is knocked out. Henry soon wakes up from his sleep and finds out that he is now trapped in the studio, leaving him no choice but to move on and find a way out. Henry finds a very inky hallway and when traversing through it, sees a strange man carrying a Bendy cutout. Henry asks for help but can't get to the man in time. Henry activates a door and finds himself in the music department, where he finds an exit, but it is blocked by ink. Henry does a lot of stuff in the studio to unlock that exit. Henry finds some keys to open a closet where there is a tape that gives him instrument orders, which he does, and then he turns on a valve and goes down to the infirmary where he gets another valve from a weird ink monster, uses the valve, and then goes to an office and turns on a lever to drain the ink. But soon enough, he is knocked out by the same strange man from before. We then find out that this man is someone named Sammy Lawrence, who is obsessed with Bendy and has tied Henry up as an offering to him. Sammy, though, is killed by Bendy instead, and Henry escapes. But then Bendy comes back and chases him. Henry escapes, though, and then is found by... Boris? Boris was another character in the Bendy cartoons made by Joey Drew. Henry wakes up in Boris's hideout, where it seems he stayed there for quite a while. Henry manages to get a lever from Boris and both of them leave the hideout and go into the wild. Or the studio, I guess. Both of them explore until Boris has to go into a vent to open a door for Henry, splitting them up. Henry gets to Heavenly Toys, where Bendy merch is produced. He then encounters Alice Angel, who was another character in the Bendy cartoons and isn't really an angel. I mean, she looks terrifying. Anyway, soon enough, Henry finds himself back with Boris, and after they make their way back to Alice Angel, she tells Henry that he will have to run some errands for her if he wants to be free. So with that, Henry keeps doing errands for Alice Angel until he has to do one last errand and encounters the Projectionist, a weird projector-human hybrid that hunts Henry down. Henry escapes it and finally completes all the errands. Alice Angel lets Henry and Boris go until she doesn't, when she starts breaking down the elevator and saying that she needs Boris to keep herself young and beautiful. Jeez, what is this fairy tale stuff? Henry then wakes up to Boris being taken away by Alice. Henry traverses more of the studio to try and find Boris until he ends up at Bendy Land, or Bendy Hell, as some of the workers like to call it. Henry does some carnival minigames, beats a giant animatronic human hybrid like Carousel called Bertram, escapes the Projectionist again, and finally ends up in the final area. Henry goes on a spooky, somewhat Halloween-themed ride, and then sees Boris all mangled up and broken. Sadly, Henry couldn't get there in time to save him, and now Alice has turned Boris into one of her guinea pigs. She orders the newly born brute Boris to kill Henry, but sadly and happily, Henry defeats him, and then Alice goes for a full-on run attack on Henry, but is luckily killed by these strange newcomers before she could do any damage. These strange newcomers are called Allison and Tom. Henry wakes up in their hideout, where they are keeping him prisoner. He learns about a secret device that can show secret messages all around the studio. After some more resting, Bendy shows up at the hideout and Allison and Tom leave Henry behind. Luckily though, Henry gets out alive, and after taking a boat, escaping a giant hand, and finally making it to a new destination, Henry encounters Sammy Lawrence? Yep, that's right, Sammy is back. Somehow. Anyway, Henry beats Sammy and he dies, hopefully for good. Henry then reunites with Tom and Allison, who proceed on, until a plank breaks and Henry falls down to the administration centre, where he needs to find 3 pipes to get to the vault room. So, Henry finds the pipes and gets into the vault room where Tom and Allison reunite with him again, and after a long journey, Henry gets to the heart of the studio. He goes there and finds a monologue by Joey Drew, talking about a tape called The End. And then, Bendy appears and goes into his final form, Monster Bendy. So, after an epic final boss fight, we finally get rid of Bendy and are transported into an apartment? Well, what seems to be Joey Drew's apartment, because he starts talking to us and tells us to go back to the studio, and Henry opens the door back to where he all began, ending Bendy and the Ink Machine. Gameplay. The gameplay in Bendy and the Ink Machine isn't as complicated as many horror games these days. You have a simple moveset. There's a jump button, interact button, and obviously you move with the sticks on the controller or the W, A, D and C keys and look with the other stick or the mouse. When you have a weapon, you use the right trigger or the mouse and you run with shift or with the L1 button on the controller. These are used to often solve puzzles, and if you beat the game, you do unlock the secret message thing from Chapter 5 to use in the other chapters that reveal more secret messages. And that's kinda it. Yeah, I know. Now you know why I stretched it out. Features. With it nearing close to the verdict, let's talk about Bendy and the Ink Machine's features. So, the visuals in this game are easily the highlight. I mean, just look at it. I love the sketch-like, cartoonish, but eerie look of the studio. It's just so cool, and I think fits Bendy really well. The music as well is so atmospheric and gives the game such a creepy tone. I mean, just listen to this one and tell me it doesn't immediately set the tone of Bendy and what you are in for. So guys, here we are, finally, with the verdict. Bendy and the Ink Machine is an atmospheric, creepy, and just so goddamn eerie horror game to play. So, with that, I rate Bendy and the Ink Machine an 8 out of 10, with 2 points being taken off because of the, let's admit it, kinda bland gameplay, and the whole of Chapter 3 just being like an entire fetch quest, which, from what most of us Bendy fans know, got on all of our nerves. But anyway guys, I rate Bendy and the Ink Machine an 8 out of 10. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the first Charlie Reviews Halloween special on one of my favourite ever horror games, Bendy and the Ink Machine. Also remember that the actual Halloween day is coming this month, and even if trick-or-treating is most likely cancelled because of the pandemic, you know, just maybe watch some horror movies or horror shows or whatever. Just anything kind of creepy or horror-y if you like, or play a horror game like Bendy and the Ink Machine, which is what I reviewed today. Trust me now, if you have not played that game yet, you are missing out on such a masterpiece, especially in its atmosphere, like I said in my review. But anyway guys, it's like nighttime right now, it's almost my bedtime, so I do have school tomorrow, and I just want to end this video now because I've been working on it all day. But anyway guys, just remember that I'm Charlie Matthews, peacing out. Don't forget to subscribe and like my videos, just sub to Charlie Matthews channel, and I'm Charlie Matthews, peacing out. Bye!